If you own a home in Florida or you're thinking about moving here, there is a proposed change to Florida property taxes that you need to know about. And this one could make a big difference for some homeowners. Florida voters will decide on Amendment 3 in November 2026. If at least 60% of voters approve it, the homestead exemption for certain property taxes could increase. But here is where it gets interesting. When you establish Florida residency, could matter. So today I'm going to explain this without all the complicated tax language. We're going to talk about what homestead exemption actually is, the important dates, who could benefit, what happens if you move to Florida after 2026, and what this could mean for investment properties and second homes. And stay until the end because I am going to give you a very simple example using a 300,000 home so you can actually see how the numbers could work. Let's get started. But first, if you're new here, let me tell you a little bit about me. I'm Rachel, a realtor here in the beautiful Central Florida. And I am passionate about helping my clients find the best opportunities while making sure we focus on what they truly want and need. If you're thinking about buying, selling, or moving to Central Florida, all my contact information is in the description below. And I am going to ask you for one quick favor. Please give this video a like. Now, let's make Florida property taxes simple. First, what is homestead exemption? Let's make this really easy. If you own a home in Florida and it is your permanent residence, Florida allows qualifying homeowners to remove part of the home's assessed value before certain property taxes are calculated. Think about it almost like a coupon on your home's taxable value. Let's say the county says your home's assessed value is 300,000. Florida says if you qualify for homestead, we're going to exempt part of that value from certain property taxes. That could lower the amount of your home's value that certain taxes are calculated on. Right now, in 2026, Florida's regular homestead exemption can be a little over 51,000. Although the way that exemption applies to school and no-school taxes is different. And that's important because this proposed amendment will make that difference even bigger. So what would Amendment 3 change? If Florida voters approve Amendment 3, qualifying homeowners who meet the residency requirements could receive an exemption of up to 160,000 beginning in 2027. Then in 2028, it could increase to 250,000. And beginning in 2029, that amount will be adjusted for positive inflation. But this is very important. Those larger exemptions apply to non-school property taxes. School district taxes are treated separately. Don't worry, that sounds confusing right now because I'm going to make it very simple without 300,000 example at the end. Now let's talk about the dates because there are 3 dates I want you to remember. First, December 31st, 2026. This one is especially important if you're thinking about relocating to Florida. Under the proposal, people who have established permanent Florida residency by December 31st could be eligible for the larger exemption when they establish a Florida homestead. And here is something that may surprise you. You don't necessarily have to own a Florida home by December 31st, 2026. You could potentially be renting. What is important under the proposal is whether Florida has become your permanent residence by that date. Florida can look at different evidence to determine permanent residency. So always verify your particular situation with the appropriate professionals. The second important date is January 1st. This is a date people sometimes confuse with the filing deadline. To qualify for Florida Homestead Exemption for a particular tax year, you generally need to own the property and use it as your permanent residence on January 1st of that year. So here's an example. If you buy your home in December 2026 and it is your permanent residence by January 1st, 2027, you could potentially qualify for the 2027 homestead exemption. But if you buy your home on January 20th, 2027, you generally will not qualify on the property for the 2027 homestead exemption. You will normally be looking towards 2028. The third important date is March 1st. It's generally the deadline to file your homestead exemption application with your county property appraiser. So remember it this way. December 31st, residency matters under the proposal. January 1st, you generally need to own and occupy your homestead to qualify for that tax year. March 1st is generally the filing deadline. 3 dates, much easier. Now, what if you move to Florida in 2027? Pay attention to this one if you're planning a future move. Under the proposal, someone who establishes Florida residency on or after January 1st, 2027 will not immediately receive the larger $150,000 or $250,000 non-school exemption. Instead, they will initially receive the smaller exemption available under the proposal for newer Florida residents. After maintaining the Florida Homestead Exemption for the required period, they could become eligible for the larger exemption beginning in their 5th year. So if you're planning to relocate to Florida, understanding when you establish residency could become important. But please don't make a major financial or relocation decision simply because of a proposed tax benefit. This amendment still has to be approved by Florida voters, and some administrative details may not be finalized until afterward. Now, here is some good news. Once your homestead exemption is approved, you generally don't have to submit a brand new application every single year, as long as you continue to qualify. But circumstances can change. You could move, ownership could change, your residency could change, and there are other exemptions with different requirements. So it's always a good idea to verify your particular situation with your county property appraiser. Now, what about investors and second homes? Here is something I think a lot of people are going to miss. Amendment 3 isn't only about primary residences. There is also a proposed change affecting certain properties that do not have homestead exemption. That could include rental properties, second homes, commercial properties, and vacant land. Currently qualifying non-homestead property has an annual assessment limitation of 10% for non-school taxes. The proposal will reduce the limitation to 5%. But be careful with the wording. That does not mean your property taxes can only increase by 5%. It means that annual increase in the property assessed value for applicable non-school taxes will generally be limited to 5%. Your actual tax bill can still be affected by tax rates and other charges. Okay, now let's use our 300,000 home and make this really simple. Let's say your home's asset value is 300,000. Remember, asset value and the price you pay for the home are not necessarily the same thing. Your property tax bill has different parts. To keep this simple, think of roughly 60% as non-school taxes and 40% as school taxes. Your actual percentage will depend on where you live. First, let's look at 2026 so you can see the difference. In 2026, the homestead exemption is about 51,000. So for the non-school taxes, approximately 249,000 of our 300,000 assessed value remains taxable. Now, let's move to 2027. If Amendment 3 passes and you qualify, the new 150,000 homestead exemption applies to non-school taxes. That approximately 60% portion of your property taxes bill. So instead of having approximately 249,000 of taxable value like our 2026 example, you will subtract 150 from the 300 assessed value, leaving 150,000 taxable for those non-school taxes. That's almost 100,000 less taxable value than in our 2026 example. Your school taxes are different. The new 150,000 exemption does not apply to them. The proposal provides a 25,000 exemption for school taxes. So the important thing to remember is the 150,000 exemption does not eliminate your property taxes. It gives qualifying homeowners a much larger break on the non-school portion of their property taxes. And remember, I'm keeping those numbers simple to help you understand how it works. Your actual property taxes depends on where you live, your assets value, exemptions, and your local tax rates. My goal with this video isn't to tell you how to vote. My goal is to make sure you understand something that could potentially affect your property taxes and your future plans. Because whether you're buying your first home, relocating to Florida, investing, or you're already a homeowner, the more you know, the better prepared you are to make the right decision for you and your family. And that's why I make these videos. Whether you're planning to move next month, next year, or you're simply beginning your research, my team and I are here to listen. You have questions, we have answers. Now, I want to hear from you. Did you know about this proposed change to Florida property taxes before watching this video? Tell me in the comments. And if you know someone who owns a home in Florida or is thinking about moving here, share this video with them. Thank you so much for watching. Have a blessed day, and I will see you in the next video.